Um, Good afternoon. It's going on 2 o'clock, and my name is Meryl Fury. I am president and CEO of this fine organization called Plant Based Nutrition Movement. We are a nonprofit that specializes in our mission is supporting people who wish to take their eating style from traditional American type, the standard American diet, more toward a healthier style of eating, a healthier way of eating, which is whole food plant-based eating. And our like biggest, strongest desire, what we love to see is that people are able to eat healthy foods, take back control of their health, stop the onslaught of diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, things like that that plague the United States population, and actually help create a healthier world. Like I said, my name is Meryl, and today we're going live cooking dark leafy green vegetables, a recipe that my father put together. I am going to just change the view here. All right, hopefully that's bright enough and you can see me. All right, hold on just 1 second. All right, so like I said, we're doing dark leafy greens today. This is a recipe that my father created, wow, a long time ago. Yeah, more than maybe 40 years ago. One time my mom was in the hospital and she was refusing to eat, and he created this recipe for her so that she would eat some dark leafy green vegetables, get her strength back, and not have a problem with uh, having to process animal products, which was my request. I'm going to warn you now, I have a dog, and the dog likes to bark whenever I'm on the phone or doing a live. Okay, this is just typical for him. Anyway, we're going to get started. I'm going to turn on my stove. Hopefully you can see that. I have two cameras going today. One is called Food Cam and one is just Meryl Fury. We're going to start with getting the pan or the pot up to temperature. Today we will be working with kale, curly mustard, yellow beet greens, Swiss chard, and daikon radish greens. Okay. This is such a great dish. I've had it a couple times now. It's one I sort of invented myself. And I wanted to let you know upfront, the recipe is super forgiving, proportions and measurements are approximate, and they're kind of like how we say they go by hand. So you put in the recipe, the ingredients. Here in our house, we say, as the ancestors tell you. And hopefully the ancestors aren't trying to play jokes on you that day. You just do what they say and everything will be fine. Okay. So we're bringing the pot up to temperature. I'm actually going to get some water so that we can test the temperature of the pot. Hold on just 1 second. And the way we do this is we get the pot good and hot, and then we splash water into the pot. Now, typically, okay, so this recipe is all oil-free, no animal products. This is just pure vegetables and water, and a little bit of salt. Traditionally, if you're using oil to cook greens, you just, put the oil in the pot and you saute your onions or whatever. And to know if the pot is hot enough, you go by like the oil is shimmering in the bottom of the pot. If you were just going to be, trying to bring it up to temperature to put oil in, you would splash a little water, and the water dances on the top of the surface of the bottom of the pot, or it evaporates, and that's how you know that it's ready to go, right? Today, we are not cooking with oil, as is the really the healthiest way to cook is without oil. And we're just going to use water to check the pot. But what we do here is splash about a quarter teaspoon of water in the pot and wait for it to be able to roll around on the surface of the bottom of the pot. This is called mercury ball temp or mercury ball temperature when it gets up to that. And they call it that because the water looks like a ball of mercury when it is rolling around on the surface of the pot. It's just about there. When you have the pot at this temperature, it allows you to saute, get in there, without the vegetables sticking and burning. You still do have to saute, move them around, but they don't stick. Okay, here we go. And we are ready to go. Gonna pour the rest of that in here. And we'll start with our onions. This is 2 medium-sized onions. These are white onions that we're putting in here. Just sort of diced. Doesn't matter what kind of onions you use. White or yellow are fine. I probably wouldn't use a red onion. That's probably a little too mild. We're going to go with, these are white onions today. Okay. While that is going, I'm going to show you about cutting up leeks. Leeks are a member of the onion family. Here you go. That's a leek. Member of the onion family. Looks like a big green onion or something like that. Big spring onion. We call those scallions on the East Coast. And the way that you manage, the way you cook or clean, I'm sorry, a leek is you cut it lengthwise, right? And then you rinse in between the layers. This is really important because the leeks have all these layers, you see them? And they accumulate dirt between the layers as they grow. It's not built like a cabbage or a Brussels sprout or lettuce, where those are like closed vegetables and the dirt doesn't really get in between the leaves of a cabbage. Leeks, I'm going to turn it down just a little bit now. Leeks, as they push up through the ground like this, they accumulate dirt down in these pockets here. I'll show you over here, down in these pockets. And you have to get that out or you'll have a very gritty meal. You don't. We are going to use as much of the leek as we can. Let's see if I can angle this down just a little bit. So we're going to cut both the white and green parts. One of the most important tools you can have in your kitchen are some sharp knives. So we're just going to cut the leek like this. Sharp knives are imperative. You can go a long time without a food processor if you have sharp knives. There are certainly times when a food processor is really important, but sharp knives are pretty dang indispensable. This has all been washed. And these green tops are looking just a little too discolored and sad, so we're going to put those to the side. They will go in the compost pile. Okay, now we're going to put the leeks in with the onions. Throw them around. These didn't get cut well enough, so I'll take that out. So the way that I like to do this, actually, let me just do this. Hopefully I won't screw everything up. I got to reduce my notifications here or off. Okay, we're good. Perfect. Okay, so the way I think about food is that it's like an orchestra, you know? Kind of funny. But you get, you know how an orchestra has its different layers of sound, you know, there's the sopranos, and then there's the mid-tones, high tones, mid-tones, low tones, bass notes, tenors, you know, things like that. I'm not a music major, so I'm sorry if I'm using the wrong terminology, but I think that's pretty right. An orchestra is not an orchestra unless you have all that going on. It sounds like something's missing. You know, if you don't have the high notes and the mid notes and the low tones, you're missing something. Well, that's kind of the way I think about food, that you need the high tones and you need the mid tones and you need the low tones. So right now we're putting the onions in, and even though the leek and the onion are the same family, and basically onion, they have a little bit different flavor, each one. So they add to the overall palate or the overall harmony of the meal, or the outcome anyway. We have just some crimini mushrooms, also called baby bellas. I'm gonna dump those in. Baby bellas, actually, I'll leave that here. Baby bellas, mushrooms add for the umami flavor of the dish. To me, mushrooms are so important. I know a lot of people don't like mushrooms. Some people are sensitive to them. A lot of people just don't like the mouthfeel of them. They, maybe feel spongy to people or funky in some way. I don't have that problem, so I use them a lot. Okay, I'm going to show you what's going on in here. So you have your green from the leeks, and you've got white from the onion, and you've got the brown and white from the mushroom. And that is important to me. Okay, I'm also going to throw in now some red bell pepper. This is actually, okay, so here's my other theory of cooking. Well substantiated in science, let me just say. That it's important that you try to include as many colors as you can in your food, right? So that way you're more assured of getting a broad range of vitamins. You get to have the benefit of eating the rainbow, is what we say, and each vitamin contributes its own color and its own set of minerals, is reflected in the colors. So we say eat the rainbow, and I try to do that as much as possible. And whenever I'm creating something, that's what I try to do. So I go for a balance of colors and a balance of like a harmony with everything. There are also other ways to look at food. That's just one way that I like to do. I'm going to add now, let's see, here we go. Some red peppers. These are dried peppers that were in my garden. Did you see those? Okay, they're dry. I can hear them. I'm just going to drop them in whole. They are pretty spicy. So I'm going to drop them in whole and not even break them. Okay, they remain intact while I do this saute here. And again, remember, we're sauteing with no oil at all, none. The oil is completely unnecessary here. Okay. I am going to add some mushroom broth again to help it out a little bit. That was just a splash. I wouldn't, maybe a cup, maybe, of mushroom broth. Okay. This is organic mushroom broth. It helps make sure that things don't stick on the bottom of the pan. And it also adds another richness, another layer of flavor. All right. Next, we're going to add minced garlic, okay? For those of you looking on that camera, minced garlic. I'm going to say that's about maybe a little bit more than a tablespoon, or about a tablespoon, a little bit more of minced garlic. But like I said, the recipe itself is very forgiving. You use what you have. So if you have 4 cloves of garlic and you want to put all 4 in, go ahead. If you don't like garlic that much and you only want to use 2, use 2. That's fine. That's what it's looking like now. Okay. very colorful, very, very flavorful. You could add celery to this. You could add green bell pepper. I just put in red because I like the color. Okay. Let that go a little bit longer. Now I'm going to show you a couple of the other things that I have here that we'll be putting in. Okay. I already showed you the leek. That was this. Move that over here. We are also going to put in kale, right? Now, kale's pretty well known these days. It's almost gotten to be cliche, right? There's jokes about kale on Facebook, for crying out loud. My husband shows them to me regularly. But kale is, it's been around a long time already. I was eating kale when I was a kid. So kale, this is already cut and rinsed, but this is like adult curly kale. We are not using baby kale today, right? Baby kale to me is for babies. It's for salads, it's a very mild form. Okay, so we're going to throw in the kale now because of the greens that I have, this is probably the toughest one. So we'll put that in first on top of the onions and peppers and leeks and mushrooms. And that is that. I'm gonna mix that around. Now, like in kale, sometimes the stems can be really tough, really tough. So even when I buy a bag of pre-cut, pre-washed kale, I still do well to pick through it and take out the sort of sad, dried out looking stems or anything like that. Make sure you don't have anything in there that doesn't look appetizing to you. I want to dedicate this demo today to two ladies I met in the last couple days. One is named Gwen. Hi, Gwen. And the other one is named Vivian. Hi, Vivian. These two ladies are recently started on their whole food plant-based journey. And they're just so inspiring to talk to people who are about taking care of their own health. They both have amazing stories that they could report, and they told me all about their journey thus far. Gwen actually asked me for a recipe for greens, so I am grateful and honored to be able to do this for her. This is what it's looking like now. So you can see, trying to get some light in there. There we go. It's cooked down nicely. Next, we're going to add the next layer of greens, okay? Next, we're going to go for the curly mustards, okay? I'm going to show you on this camera as well, curly mustards. This is just one bunch of curly mustard greens. And I do need to tell you, I do certainly use the bagged pre-washed greens, certainly. But for this, I really wanted to use just whole leaf so I could show you what these greens look like. I think over all the years of people eating American style, and it's getting more and more convenient, and we try and save time, cut corners every which way we can so we can save time and work. People have forgotten how to work with whole leafy greens. So this is what curly mustard looks like. I just got this morning. Beautiful, fresh curly mustard leaves. Here you go. A little bit darker on this camera. My apologies. Maybe we can do something for the light. I don't know. Anyway, so what I wanted you to see was how to cut these. Because like I said, okay, so when I grew up, there were no bagged, pre-washed, pre-cut vegetables. That didn't exist. So my mom and my dad would, we bought greens. They look like this, a bunch of greens, like this. Only it would be a big bunch. And part of dealing with them was the prep, and part of that was washing them. And I think my mom insisted that I wash them 3 times each bunch. She would soak them and put water in, salt in the water. She'd put them in a dishpan with salt, and the salt, she said, would help drag the sand off the greens and dirt off the greens and put it in the bottom of the pan. It certainly seemed to work that way. And so I'm very used to dealing with fresh greens. It's not a problem at all. It's kind of nice, actually. Other thing is like the sharp knife thing. Let me go back to that. This is what a chef's knife looks like. Get that. Rub it off of there. Chef knife looks like that. Chef's knife. Okay. Has a slightly rounded bottom. All right. It is designed that way. So if you can see what I'm doing here, let me angle this down a little bit. You can cut very easily without really lifting the knife too far from the cutting surface. Right? There you go. Not hard. And actually, because I've been eating this way for such a while, I'm pretty used to it. You know, it's like I've gotten a whole meditative thing going about cutting vegetables. It's not a problem for me at all. It's very peaceful, actually. Okay, so that was curly mustard. Next, we are going to use chard, okay? When I grew up, chard was not a thing. We didn't do chard. We did mustard greens, collard greens, kale, turnip greens. I never heard of chard until I got to be very much older. This is chard, and you can see that it has this red vein down the center. It's beautiful, actually. Very, very beautiful. So we're going to cut that. That will go in next. I'm going to cut lengthwise down the stalk. And then the same action on the leaves. The main thing is keep your knife sharp. Sharp knives are indispensable. And then the second main thing is keep your fingers out of the way. So you don't have any accidents. Because this is free of animal products. We don't need any animal products in the meal. And that is Swiss chard. I have some other leaves of that cut and prepped, so I'll add those in. That's one bunch of Swiss chard. And it is simmering right along. Okay. A little stir. It's starting to smell great. Now, like I said, we're not putting any smoked meat in here, which would be a traditional way to cook greens, right? You put ham hocks or smoked turkey thighs or something is very common. But we're building flavor by, I'll say the orchestra method. A mix of greens, and that's about what we're using. I am going to get out of my pantry here some smoked salt and a little bit of liquid smoke just to get that smoky flavor, right? So this is smoked salt, actually found it at IKEA of all places, right? So some of that, it's a rather large flake salt. Smells beautiful. I love it. How lucky are we? Oh my gosh, you can see the reds and the oranges from the peppers. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Look at that. Better than Christmas. Okay, next, we're going to put in some beet greens. Okay. Now, I have heard stories about people who don't like beets. It's beyond me how you cannot like beets, but that's what the stories say. Beets also have greens on the top here. Beautiful. Look at how lively that is. Oh my gosh. How could you not love that? Okay. So this is how you handle that. Cut the greens off. Save the beet for another day. Beets are great roasted, shredded, raw, put in juice. Lots of things you can do with beets. Anyway, this beet greens were already washed, and we're gonna chop those just like we did the chard and the curly mustard. Beautiful. Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm in heaven. Okay. And that's how quick and easy it is to chop up a small bunch of beet greens. I'm gonna get these out of the way. My cooking prep surface here is getting a little bit congested. And I will also add in the rest of the beet greens. That is the greens from one bunch of beets. Here's the rest of them. Okay. And we'll just put those in. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Now, if you're really going to go for the full orchestra effect here, I would probably roast beets and serve roasted beets with these greens because you have the beet greens already. And that would just like pull it together, in my opinion. Okay, last but not least, and this one I want you guys to see this because this is not typically something that goes into greens. Actually, chard and beets don't either, but for me, I love adding whatever I can to make a dish well-rounded. So I wanted to show you daikon radish. Okay, daikon radish. I think it's traditionally a Japanese vegetable. The only recipes I can find for it, or the first recipes I can find for it, had to do with a Japanese condiment made with the greens and soy sauce. But the daikon radish itself looks like this. And this is a small one, okay? I want you to see the size of this, right? See that? It's nearly as big as my forearm. At the top, I can't close my fingers around that. The diameter is big, right? So it's a large thing, and this is a small one. It goes super well if you roast it and then use it in the dish with the greens here. So this is the daikon radish that I cut earlier. That goes like that. And let me cut up this last one here. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna cut this. That little piece we can just throw in there. They're so beautiful. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Tastes like greens. So we'll just cut these like we did the others. Actually, it has a little bit of a radish flavor, raw, a little bit. The good news is these are just super healthy, you know, there's nothing in the world like dark leafy greens for iron and calcium and vitamins and fiber and all that. Okay, so that's the rest of those. And that is pretty much that. Okay, I'm gonna put a lid on this. Just like that. And then I'm going to get some of the greens that I cooked yesterday so I can show you how they turn out. Give me 1 second. Move their variegator here. Well, I think they might have landed downstairs. Okay, well, given that yesterday was Thanksgiving, I think they landed in the refrigerator downstairs, so we'll have to do without that. But what I'll do is get down to some of this that's already cooked and I'll taste that because I'm sure, I mean, greens, you can eat them raw, right? So it will be no problem to taste them. And I want you to see what they look like too. They're so colorful. They're so beautiful. And they really have a sort of a smell like you're outside. It's an outdoorsy kind of smell. So let's go with that. And I'm gonna get just a little bowl. Work. Now these are gonna have to cook down a little bit more. But I do want you to see how beautiful this looks. I want you to just know vegetables alone are great. They're great. They're beautiful. Oh my gosh, look at that. Now you may not be able to see. Let's see if I can pull some of the red up. Yeah, right? Beautiful. Okay, now what would work really well would be a little bit of apple cider vinegar. Works well. I am going to add some liquid smoke. Not a lot. Maybe like a half a teaspoon, I guess that is. Not a lot. I think liquid smoke goes a long way. At least it does for me. I'll put just 1 drop right there. And I'll taste it. Nobody can argue with that. That is so beautiful. And with the, here's what I am going to do. I'm going to add a little bit more mushroom broth, and that will help. That might have been another cup. That'll help with making for pot liquor, which is great. The other day I had this for breakfast with brown rice. That was like, you know, stepping into a little piece of heaven for me. Beautiful. Let that cook down a little bit. I'm going to turn the heat down just a little and let it go for itself. Good stuff, Maynard. That's our demo for today. Again, Thank you, Gwen. Thank you, Vivian. So nice talking to you over the last couple of days. Keep up the good work. Strive to be healthy. That goes for everybody. Strive to be healthy. Do what you can to step out of the way of chronic illness. You have options. You do. It looks like food though. It looks like vegetables and fruit and whole grains and nuts and seeds. That's one of the ways to step out of the way of a nasty diagnosis. I want to thank everybody for stopping by. I appreciate you. I love you. I wish you all the best of health. You guys take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.